Shalom. I am Benaiah Ben Israel, and I would like to welcome you to the African Israelite Justice Foundation. Roughly 9 months ago, the world witnessed the unprecedented persecution of Kyrie Irving. For it was then that African Israelites around the world, and in particular here in the States, realized that there was no organization to plead our cause, to voice our concerns, or to point out the hypocrisy and the injustice by those who themselves owe Black folks an apology and a paycheck. Well, no more. We are happy to announce a birth, born out of adversity, roughly 9 months in the making, an organization which will fight for the rights of Israel, the African Israelite Justice Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting African Israelites from all forms of injustice. Our mission is to advocate for the rights afforded to all citizens, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and the right to petition the government. We seek to protect these rights without being condemned, persecuted, punished, or bullied. We will also strive to protect African Israelites against bullying, harassment, Hebrewophobia, racist attacks, defamation of character, financial attacks, and hate crimes. We pledge to serve our community with dignity and excellence to the best of our ability. And we won't rest until every single African Israelite is protected. So join us. Visit us today online at israelitejustice.org and show your support and share your stories of injustice with us, where we will collect them, investigate them, and most high willing, through judicial and legislative means, and the power of the Most High Yah, prosecute them. And with that, thank you for your time and your support. And remember, it is time for Israel's voice to be heard. Shalom.
Family, it is so many videos right now. I don't know where to start. It's so much going on right now. And y'all know I am geeked to the highest level. Y'all know I love a good old news report. I love a good old news. I love some good old news. And I play CNN in my car. I play everybody's news reports, YouTube. I especially play TikTok. Y'all watch TikTok. TikTok is not bound by the censorship of the rest of these social media sites, because you got to think about it. TikTok is owned by what? China. So they can play anything in reference to the news that other outlets cannot play. Don't sleep on TikTok. People make jokes about, oh, this TikTok. No, TikTok has been showing some stuff that these other social media outlets have dropped the ball on. They dropped the ball on. I think that's what I said. Drop the ball on. They have totally dropped the ball. They ain't showing nothing because they're bound by a system that will not allow them to speak freely. And, hey, I'm going to leave it right there. But unlike them, TikTok ain't bound by nothing. So what's been going on, y'all? Hold on one second. Why does Pastor Kelly call me right when I'm doing a live? I'm doing a live. Yeah. What are you talking about? The war crimes. You can come on. You talking about the fight in Chicago? I'm talking about that too. The fight in Chicago. I'm talking to Pastor Kelly, y'all. I'm going to talk about the fights as well, but why don't you come on? We got to talk about these war crimes. Okay, well, give me a bell, because I'm not even at home. I'll be right at home, so Oh, I'm gonna be. I just started, so I'm gonna be live. Y'all hear my conversation with Pastor Kelly. Okay, well, I see you when you get here. Goodbye. Y'all know what? Y'all do something about Pastor Kelly. Y'all really pray for him. He need help. He's talking about 5 hot wings. But TikTok is emerging as a point where you can see uh um you can see what's going on. Like they've been giving, I mean, such vivid pictures of what's going on in Palestine right now that people now are rushing to TikTok for the information. Now, keep in mind, people are going to say all day long, oh, TikTok is just social media. TikTok doing something because TikTok is showing what the world would not show. And the thing is, it makes you wonder, it kind of answers your question of why the US government was trying to shut TikTok down. Because TikTok can show what y'all ain't gonna show. So I think a lot of cases because people have access to social media that and the ability to see things of what's really going on, especially dealing with TikTok, that they can't spin the narrative right now. And best to believe that the things that were going on, the things that have been going on, they want to hide it. Don't play. This government wants to hide what's going on, but they can't right now because the information is out there. And one thing about information, when you see it, you can't unsee it. And they're in a position now that even if they was to say, let's shut TikTok down, let's shut all of it down, guess what happens? You can't unsee what you saw. And it's not a good position for them right now. So with that being said, everybody texted me because I was supposed to start at I can't, y'all pray for these folks in our community. Everybody texting me right now, but you can't unsee it. So they still got little tidbits on YouTube, but YouTube is not going to give you the full out story of what's going on. So what I don't like though, I wish TikTok had I think they have a web version of it, but we'll see. I got a couple of videos, but the first thing I do want to play, and my child took my charger. I'm so over it. Let's see. I'm gonna put this up here because it's true. They demonize TikTok so much because they cannot control the way do all the other social media. So let's tie it to Russia and play scared of it. Yes. Y'all, they getting ready to, this is what we finna talk about. Baby, they fighting. But oh my God. Okay, I'm live. Can I call you back? Right. Okay, so they're about to bring them in on war crimes. So I'm gonna play a couple of videos. They fighting with me. People just want to call, and I can't right now. I gotta focus. So should I start here? I'm trying to figure out where to start. I got so many videos, y'all. Okay. Hold on. I got videos. Everybody throwing me off right now. Everybody stop calling me for a minute. Because I know some of y'all watching. Okay, so let me see. Let's see, y'all. Bear with me. Y'all tell everybody to stop calling me right now for just a few minutes. Okay, so let's start with, let's see. I'm trying to see where I can start, y'all. I got so many videos. Let's see. Yeah, I got a ton of videos that I've just been saving for this conversation. So let's start with, let's see. Hold on, y'all. I got a ton. When I say a ton of videos, hold on. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Bear with me, family. Let's see. I'm going to start here. All right. Saints, I'm finna share. Y'all ready, honey? Y'all are ready. Let's start with what constitutes a war crime.
War between Israel and Hamas, with the Israelis condemning Hamas's horrific attacks on innocent people on October 7th as war crimes. As people in Gaza even are pointing their fingers at Israel, accusing Israel of committing war crimes against them with those retaliatory strikes after the attack. So what constitutes a war crime? What does it actually mean? And how do these rules play into what's happening now? Our NBC News senior legal and investigative correspondent Cynthia McFadden takes a look in tonight's breakdown, and we want to warn you, some of what's covered in this story are disturbing.
While it's fair to say bloodshed has plagued us since the dawn of time, the laws of war, a group of international treaties and conventions signed over the past 150 years, are an attempt to lessen the civilian toll. Born out of the horrors of European conflicts, the American Civil War, and 2 world wars, what's known as international humanitarian law, or IHL, relies on 5 basic principles. Military actions must be necessary. They must distinguish between civilians and legitimate military targets. They must be proportionate, meaning they must avoid, to the extent possible, incidental harm. They must avoid unnecessary suffering, sometimes referred to as humanity. And finally, the actions taken by the military must be honorable. When combatants break these principles, we generally call that a war crime, but there are few absolutes, as you will see. Question: did Hamas commit war crimes on October 7th when they attacked Israeli villages and a music festival, taking hostages and killing civilians?
It was an intentional attack on Israeli civilians for no appropriate reason. Hamas committed a war crime.
Professor David Crane spent 3 years prosecuting war crimes committed in Sierra Leone. He says that while Hamas's attacks against Israeli military posts on the border can be condemned and criticized as wrong, attacking military posts are generally not war crimes. However, he says, the killing of civilians and taking of hostages is a different story.
Taking civilians and using them for purposes other than to protect them and remove them from the battlefield is a war crime.
Question: but what about Israel's response, dropping thousands of bombs in Gaza? Israel has the right to defend itself, says Ambassador David Sheffer, who played a critical role in the development of the first permanent war crimes tribunal, the International Criminal Court. However,
Israel has to try to follow the principle of distinction, namely distinguishing between civilians and armed Hamas militants. Those are decisions where you should have a military lawyer involved.
Question: if Israeli airstrikes hit civilian buildings, is that a war crime? Schools and hospitals cannot be targets, says Ambassador Sheffer, but there are exceptions.
If it were a hospital building that had almost no patients in it, but actually was housing 300 Hamas militants, then sure. I mean, that's a legitimate military target.
Question: Israel cut off food, water, medicine, fuel, and
Y'all see how they
electricity to
spinning
all
it?
of
This way,
Gaza.
this way.
Is that a war crime? Both experts say blockades are legal, but there are limits.
If Israel said we're going to temporarily blockade so that we can try to get the hostages back, well, then that is still lawful. But they took it one step further and said we're going to do this blockade to basically starve them out. That's wrong.
Question: final advice from the experts? As Israel seems poised to launch a ground war, and as humanitarian observers from the UN say there is no longer anywhere for civilians to stay safe in Gaza.
President Biden rightfully is now cautioning Israel, saying, take a step back, take a deep breath, try to understand the strategic results of what you have done with the blockade, but also what you're about to do, and that is physically go in.
Or, as Ambassador Schaefer put it, Israel must be able to defend itself without abandoning its own principles. If it fails to do so, it may find itself in a militarily superior position, but ostracized on a risky perch. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
If you notice, It's the U.S. that's really trying to spin it otherwise. If you notice, these other countries are like, oh no, this bad right here. Y'all doing the most, and this is a war crime, and y'all need to stop with the foolishness. So there was a situation where the UN chief speaker, I guess chief speaker sparks Israeli anger over comments of allegedly. I'll play it for you. Hold on, I'm gonna play it. So ultimately, he was calling them out for what they did, and I'm building it. Just bear with me. He literally was calling them out for some of the stuff that they were doing, and they got mad, and they were literally saying he needs to resign. So I'll show you this one. All right, I'm gonna share this one. Are y'all good? Are y'all enjoying this? Let me know if you're not. Okay, let's get it right, cracking, lacking. Let's see. Oh, it gets real interesting.
Secretary General is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Now, the UN Secretary General is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Antonio Guterres, alleging violations of international law have been committed in the enclave since the conflict broke out. The comments made at a high-level session of the UN Security Council angering Israel, prompting a tough response. Take a listen.
I'll open the door.
I'm deeply concerned about the clear violations of international humanitarian law that we are witnessing in Gaza. It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation.
Abigail, 3 years old. Tell me, what is a proportionate response for killing of babies? How you can agree to a ceasefire with someone who swore to kill and destroy your own existence? How?
For more on this story, here's France 24's Jessica Le Mazurier reporting from New York.
It was a really heated Security Council debate on the Middle East. Both the Israeli and Palestinian foreign ministers gave emotive speeches. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki demanded an end to the killing of Palestinian civilians. He said that only peace will bring security for Israel. He added that nothing can justify what Israel is doing and described it as a collective punishment. Now, Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen dismissed calls for proportionality, and he said that his country's objective is to destroy Hamas. He described Hamas as the new Nazis. Well, before the foreign ministers addressed the Security Council, the Secretary General spoke, and he called for a ceasefire and for the protection of civilians, for international humanitarian law to be respected. He said that the Hamas attacks didn't happen in a vacuum, however, and that the Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. Now, Israel's foreign minister took offense at that and cancelled a meeting with Guterres. Jordan's foreign minister said Israel appeared to be above international law, and he urged an end to what he termed as double standards in dealing with this conflict. Now, several member states are calling for a ceasefire. French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna has called for humanitarian pauses during this meeting. She said that could eventually lead to a ceasefire. Tensions between the US and Russia were ever apparent. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken attended the meeting, and he said that humanitarian pauses must be considered. But a Security Council resolution drafted by the US does not, at this time, call for either a ceasefire or pauses. And Russia's ambassador was keen to point that out at this meeting. He said that Russia would be putting forward its own resolution, which would call for a ceasefire. Now, 2 resolutions have already failed to pass in the Security Council in the past days, and 2 more could be put to a vote in the coming days. Ecuador warned that the Security Council must not become an arena for rivalries.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Good.
Tonight, Secretary of State Blinken pledging $112 million in emergency aid to rebuild Gaza and meeting with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, sidelined by the Trump administration.
We will work with partners to ensure that Hamas does not benefit from these reconstruction efforts.
Blinken's overall mission cementing the fragile ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas militants who run Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning,
if Hamas breaks the calm and attacks Israel, our response will be very powerful.
I asked Secretary Blinken what assurances he's getting from both sides. Did you get any commitments from Prime Minister Netanyahu to not evict Palestinians from East Jerusalem neighborhoods? And did you get any assurances from the Palestinian Authority today that they could have any influence over Gaza?
Any steps that either side takes that either risk sparking violence or over time and ultimately undermine the prospect for returning to the pursuit of two states, we oppose.
But Suma Kawasmi, a third-generation resident of disputed East Jerusalem, not hopeful.
No, our lives before the ceasefire and after the ceasefire, it's a lot. It's the same.
Blinken says he wants Israelis to stop evicting Palestinians and demolishing their homes, and Palestinians to stop inciting violence and paying terrorists in prison. No promises from either side.
Y'all see how they conveniently and they just, it's like, and I'm trying to find the news report. They said 3,000 babies pretty much in Gaza are unalive right now. 3,000 babies. Now, I know, family, we said no sides. I know everybody's like, we ain't got nothing to do with this, but your heart has to go out. 3,000 babies. That hurt my heart because my daughter showed me some pictures of babies. And one baby was pale and blue in the face. Anybody got a human element, it touches your heart. It hurts you. And you can see that the baby had no life. No life in them. This is what's been playing on TikTok. TikTok has been showing the videos. And the baby is just limp. And I had never seen a dead body like that before. Until now. And the baby was blue and pale. And I said, oh my God. One little girl cried and said, I can't, my mom is gone. My mama's gone. And I had 3,000 babies in Gaza. My mama's gone. I don't have anybody else. She said, I know it's her because I think she recognized the hair or something. Me and my daughter was in tears. Whoo! We was in tears. In tears. Because when I saw that little girl, I saw my daughter. And how much, when she was that young, how important I was. I remember when I had a car accident. And I have a scar on my face actually for it. It's healed very well. I got very good plastic surgery done to hide the scar. But it was a really bad scar. But she saw that I was hurt and saw the blood on my face, and she was freaking out. She was just crying. And it took me to that point because in her eyes, she thought I was almost dead. And I just had a scar on my face. And I saw the panic in her eyes. And the panic wasn't like, oh my God. The panic was, that's my mama. That's all I got. And she had to actually go with my friend at that time because I had to be rushed to the ER because of the scar on my face. And somebody said, Sister E Chronicles, forget you, y'all, son. But when we got there and they did the stitches and I went and picked Madison up the next day after I left the emergency room, she cried like a baby because she thought that she had lost her mother. So when I saw that little girl, I saw that panic and I said, oh my gosh. And that desperation that Madison saw. And I was like, oh my goodness. But y'all, as much as we say we take no sides, it has to hurt hearts. It has to draw you to a level of tears. 3,000 children. 3,000. 3,000. That broke my heart. That right there, I cried. I don't care what nobody said. I cried because I was like 3,000 children. These are innocents now. And I know people are going to say, well, what about our babies on the captivity? I understand that part, but I'm talking about what I'm seeing, And when I saw it, I wouldn't dare do that to anybody. I wouldn't dare do that to anybody. Oh my gosh. So since y'all son gonna say Sister E Chronicles, I'm so unbothered by you. So let's talk about, I'm gonna play this one.
Kardeşlerini kucaklıyor. ...500.000'e yakın İstanbulluya zulme karşı duruşu... İsrail'in Filistin'de katlettiği mazlumların...
Ya İsrail, sen buralara nasıl geldin? Nasıl girdin? Sen bir işgalcisin. Sen bir örgütsün. Dolayısıyla Türk milleti bunu biliyor. İsrail, biz de seni savaş suçlusu olarak dünyaya ilan edeceğiz. Gazze'de savunma değil, açık ve alçak bir katliam yürütülmektedir. Gazze halkının sergilediği vakur, kararlı ve inançlı duruş, tarihe şanlı bir direniş destanı olarak yazılacaktır.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories.
Yeah, I promise y'all, they are literally, I've never seen them come at them, and I'm just gonna say it because you know they love the flag channels, the way they've been coming at them. I'm gonna play another one, and this one is a little long. Hold on, let me see. This is the video. Y'all got 6 minutes. One, if y'all want to keep watching videos, or 2, if y'all want to hear me talk. I know y'all gonna say 1, because y'all do me any kind of way. Y'all be doing me any kind of way. Oh, saints be doing me any kind of way, but that's all right. That's all right. Oh, y'all don't want to hear me talk. That's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and put the video on. I don't want to talk to y'all anyway. How about that? I'm just joking. Oh.
Give the floor to the Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres.
Now, this is
Mr.
the UN.
President, with your permission, I would make a small introduction.
So they've been having a series of conversations within the UN, because they're ultimately saying that Israel is breaking the Geneva Code. And one of the main parts of that code is you cannot bomb a hospital. You cannot hold people, civilians, hostage and not allow them no water or no food. So they're saying that they are ultimately, Israel is committing war crimes. One, the bombing of multiple hospitals. And one of the things that they brought up was that they have killed 3,000 children. What are children going to do? And the biggest thing is now they're telling, U.S. is actually telling Israel, stop. Y'all stop for a second. Y'all keep going, and I'm just paraphrasing. It's finna get worse. The UN is telling them to stop. Everybody's saying stop. And you know what Israel's saying? No, we finna keep going. Saints, I sat there and I said, oh my gosh. So let me play this one.
And then ask my colleagues to brief the Security Council on the situation on the ground. Excellencies, the situation in the Middle East is growing more dire by the hour. The war in Gaza is raging and risks spiraling throughout the region. Divisions are splintering societies, tensions threaten to boil over. At a crucial moment like this, it is vital to be clear on principles, starting with the fundamental principle of respecting and protecting civilians. I have condemned unequivocally the horrifying and unprecedented 7 October acts of terror by Hamas in Israel. Nothing can justify the deliberate.
Let me add my little commentary right here. I don't care about y'all not want to listen to me. Yep, he said they're going to. Yep, that's one of the things he said. There was the prime minister said they're going to make dust out of the Palestinians. So they talking big money, cash money, because guess what? Every nation has been backing them. They have controls of the banks. They got control. So when you got control over everything, you like, shut up, talk to me. Yes, we're small in numbers, but we control everything. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's about to go down. It's about to go. I'm sitting and I'm watching and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not good. So they trying to get them to ease, put the brakes on it. They like, you doing the most, stop. And they're constantly having these conversations within the UN, trying to figure out how they're going to handle it. And one of the things that's brought up with this Geneva conference or Geneva Code, I hope I'm saying it right, they're killing children. And it's like there's like a code that they have, and they're constantly breaking code. They don't care. They don't care. So, finish one.
Killing, injuring, and kidnapping of civilians, or the launching of rockets against civilian targets. All hostages must be treated humanely and released immediately and without conditions. And I respectfully note the presence among us of members of their families. Excellencies, it is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. They have seen their land steadily devoured by settlements and plagued by violence, their economy stifled, their people displaced, and their homes demolished. Their hopes for a political solution to their plight have been vanishing. But the grievances of the Palestinian people cannot justify the appalling attacks by Hamas, and those appalling attacks cannot justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. Excellencies, even war has rules. We must demand that all parties uphold and respect their obligations under international humanitarian law, take constant care in the conduct of military operations to spare civilians, and respect and protect hospitals, and respect the inviolability of UN facilities, which today are sheltering more than 600,000 Palestinians. The relentless bombardment of Gaza by Israeli forces, the level of civilian casualties, and the wholesale destruction of neighborhoods continue to mount and are deeply alarming. I mourn and honor dozens of UN colleagues working for UNRWA. Sadly, at least 35 and counting, killed in the bombardment of Gaza over the last 2 weeks. I owe to their families my condemnation of these and many other similar killings. The protection of civilians is paramount in any armed conflict. Protecting civilians can never mean using them as human shields. Protecting civilians does not mean ordering more than 1 million people to evacuate to the south, where there is no shelter, no food, no water, no medicine, and no fuel, and then continuing to bomb the south itself. I'm deeply concerned about the clear violations of international humanitarian law that we are witnessing in Gaza. Let me be clear, no party to an armed conflict is above international humanitarian law. Excellencies, thankfully some humanitarian relief is finally getting into Gaza, but it is a drop of aid in an ocean of need. In addition, our UN fuel supplies in Gaza will run out in a matter of days, and that would be another disaster. Without fuel, aid cannot be delivered, hospitals will not have power, and drinking water cannot be purified or even pumped. The people of Gaza need continuous aid delivery at a level that corresponds to the enormous needs. And that aid must be delivered without restrictions. I salute our UN colleagues and humanitarian partners in Gaza working under hazardous conditions and risking their lives to provide aid to those in need. They are an inspiration. To ease epic suffering, make the delivery of aid easier and safer, and facilitate the release of hostages, I reiterate my appeal for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Excellencies, even in this moment of grave and immediate danger, we cannot lose sight of the only realistic foundation for a true peace and stability, a two-state solution. Israelis must see their legitimate needs for security materialized, and Palestinians must see their legitimate aspirations for an independent state realized in line with the United Nations resolution, international laws, and previous agreements. And finally, we must be clear on the principle of upholding human dignity. Polarization and dehumanization are being fueled by a tsunami of disinformation. We must stand up to the forces of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim bigotry, and all forms of hate. Mr. President, Excellencies, today is United Nations Day, marking 78 years since the UN Charter entered into force. That charter reflects our shared commitment to advance peace, sustainable development, and human rights. On this UN Day, at this critical hour, I appeal to all to pull back from the brink before the violence claims even more lives and spreads even further. Thank you very much.
What's going on, Pastor Kelly?
Hey, how's it going, sis?
It's going good. It's going good. So we're talking about the whole war crimes now. With the whole breaking the Geneva Convention Code, where they're actually going in the hospitals, bombing Israel, bombing hospitals, killing the count right now is 3,000 children, going in and killing civilians, cutting off water supply to civilians. And they said that totally breaks the Geneva Convention Code, that they are a policy, that these are considered to be legitimate war crimes. What are your thoughts?
Well, we shouldn't be surprised because it's written in their Talmud that it's okay for them to break agreements. It's written in their Talmud that it is okay for them to break agreements. No matter who it is, it's okay for them to break agreements. There's a difference, of course, among themselves versus whom they deem to be goyim. They make it clear that it's okay for them to break agreements. So that's not surprising because I've been keeping track, like you have, with a number of things that have been going on over there, especially when you start dealing with war crimes. And for me, I was up in Philadelphia these past couple of days, and was an invited guest, pretty much the speaker for the entire weekend. And I touched on the thought of how liars create the illusion of truth. And so I'm sure you heard that saying, whoever control the pages, control your thoughts.
Yep.
So it kind of fall in line with how liars create the illusion of truth. And that's where you get that saying, repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth. So when we start thinking about the propaganda machine, we start dealing with manipulation and agreements and so forth, we can truly say the UN and all these other countries created this. Because when you look at the Balfour Declaration, it's not an agreement, it's a declaration, right? But nevertheless, when you look at that and you look at the deceptions behind that, even prior to, of course, World War II, you see the 6 million number being tossed around shortly after that Balfour Declaration. Like in, I believe the first publication that made notice of that or registered the 6 million number was in, I believe it was 1913. So when we see, again, as your question is, breaking these agreements, they've always broken the agreements. And matter of fact, whoever controlled the pages, they've all broken the agreement.
Yeah.
If we want to be real about it, and we start backdating some of these agreements back to the transatlantic World War, because it was a world war, is documented
and it's
that
war
it's the World War. Look at all the war crimes.
Yep.
Look at how media propaganda selectively determine whose history is worse.
Yep.
But our histories are always excluded. You know, you'll hear that Hitler was the worst villain, the worst person ever, right? Because of the crimes he committed. But we don't hear anything about King Leopold.
I was talking about that a couple days ago. King Leopold.
You know,
Yep.
15 to 20 million Negroes murdered. And we're not even dealing with the World War, the transatlantic World War, but just that in itself, war crimes. You know, if we backdate that and the things that he was doing.
Yep.
I mean, and this is all part of the plan of annexing Africa. You know, to justify his actions by stating that the land is not being occupied, certain territories that he was targeting. And of course, who's with him? Britain, the French.
Belgium.
Well, who was part of the annexing of Israel, which at the time was referred to as Palestine. The Brits, there was major players in that. The French. Then when you go to fast forward a little bit to this the Suez Canal, that man-made canal. Look at who was behind that. French was teaming up with Brit, and they tried to go against undermine the Egyptians. Nasser was the president at that time. So what do? Propaganda demonizes, right, a certain group that they're targeting, so that way all the viewers, all the world is hoodwinked, so to speak, into supporting their actions. Now, I've said this from the very beginning. I was skeptical of some of the things that was coming out. I put a video up showing that that whole thing about 40 babies being kidnapped, being held in cages, being decapitated, you know, that was an absolute lie. I heard you mention TikTok. Well, there was a TikTok video 4 days before Hamas carried out their agenda on the Israelis. 4 days before all of that transpired, those videos that they used, those images that they used to get people stirred up, was on TikTok 4 days prior.
Wow.
So here it is. We have proof. We have it right in front of our faces, this agenda, this machine, because President Biden pushed that notion of 40 babies, you know, being held in cages. And and even in the report, I'll see if I can locate the report. But even then, they made it clear that in this report that the original image is believed to actually be Palestinian babies in cages years ago by the Israelis. So we see Biden push that notion. We see, I even have a video with Piers Morgan pushing those lies, and then even lies stating that he never said or alluded to for 40 babies being decapitated, held in cages, and all that nonsense. And then I post a video with him actually stating and pushing that lie. So it goes back to who control the pages, control the thoughts. It goes back to that thought of repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth. And I just believe that more and more people are getting exhausted about kind of like the, I'm not going to just say the boy who cried wolf, but kind of like that person that has a tendency of taking everything to a 5-alarm level. You know, everything that happens to this particular community without mentioning any names, it tends to be a 5-alarm fire, right? But their crimes, the things that they have done, is not being brought to the light. It's almost like, not almost, it is. We see it planned before our eyes, justified genocide, right? They're murdering thousands upon thousands of children. Think about this hustle, Sister E. The Israelis told the Palestinians they had 24 hours to go from, to get to southern Gaza. That travel is at least a 50-mile hike. Now, think about, you have marathon runners. You have people that are well exercised, well trained. In some cases, take 8 hours to run 8 miles. But think about what they did. They bombed they bombed the area. They cut off the water. They cut off supplies. And then you telling the people that have families and all, to take their belongings and travel a 50-mile hike at least to get to a southern area. And then what do? They bombed it. They bombed the southern area. That's genocide that we see right before our eyes. That reminds me of, during the Holocaust, the death trains. Because the same playbook, those that didn't support the Zionist movement, they were told that, hey, get on these trains to freedom, and it'll protect them or prevent them from having to deal with the war that was percolating there. What happened? They got on these trains and led to these concentration camps. And many of them didn't live beyond that. So that's why they refer to them as being death trains. So you can say that they gave the Palestinians a death march, sort of like David did with one of his soldiers, gave him his death papers to take to the general or the head of the army and put him at the front, place him at the front of the war, knowing that his chances of survival will be very, very, very, very minimal. So when we start thinking about war crimes, right, and we're dealing with this particular community, it is documented in their Talmud that they can break their agreements. And we see the same things that the Spanish, did with the Europeans did with the Native Americans here. They broke every agreement that they made with them. So my apologies if I'm a little long-winded with answering the question.
No, you're good, because we're talking through it, and there's nothing wrong with talking. So, because it's interesting that you brought up that they had 24 hours to get to the south part of Gaza. I'm gonna show a video right here of what was the end result of that.
Welcome to the News Hour. We're entering the fourth week of war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza as Israel's air campaign continues and the death toll mounts.
Israel is now fighting Hamas on the ground in Gaza, with troops moving methodically in the northern end of the Strip, while in the south, more than 1 million Gazans await aid. Layla Molana Allen again starts our coverage.
For the fourth day straight, tanks and armored vehicles rolled into Gaza as part of Israel's growing ground offensive. At his first press conference since the October 7th terror attacks, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated that Israel will not consider a ceasefire.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
And Israel's longest-serving premier said he will not resign, despite growing anger at his government among Israelis.
The only thing that I intend to have resign is Hamas. We're going to resign them to the dustbin of history. That's my goal.
A goal apparent over Gaza City today, its skyline still filled with explosions, including in areas near the city's largest hospitals. The Palestinian Red Crescent yesterday released video from inside Al-Quds Hospital after a nearby Israeli rocket attack. Areas near Al-Shifa Hospital have also been hit in recent Israeli airstrikes. Israel says Hamas hides one of its main military command centers beneath the hospital. But Al-Shifa is also home to 50,000 displaced Palestinians. Nearby streets are becoming tent cities with their own food and clothes stores.
Now the Israelis say that they will hit Al-Shifa. The threats do not frighten us. Let them launch airstrikes as much as they want. We are all martyrs in the end.
The conflict has already exacted an excruciating toll on civilians, with thousands dead, even the most vulnerable. So far, more than 3,000 children have been killed. According to Save the Children, that's more than the total
Hey,
number
Sister,
of
can you
children
pause it real
killed
quick?
annually in conflict zones since 2019. South of the city.
I just want to say this because I saw a comment here, and I just want to say this. You know, we don't have a fight in this game. You know, the situation between Palestine and Israel, but that does not remove us from being sensitive to that situation.
Yes.
You know, I want to be clear with that. You know, I'm not going to be nonchalant, you know, when I know that innocent people are being killed. I'm just not going to do that. You know, I'm still going to have a sense of a sensitivity towards those situations. And I believe this is why the Most High had to tell Israel that, remember, you were once homeless. You were once enslaved. You were once basically at the lower end of the total pole. So don't forget where you come from. And I think sometimes we can be very nonchalant in how we post things and what we say as a community. I understand we've all been hurt, and I understand what these different communities have done to our community. You know, we understand this, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with being sensitive to what's going on with innocent people being murdered. You know, innocent people basically them taking out that playbook, what they've done to our community. We see it right in front of us. We see it right in front of us. So let's be respectful, especially those that are in the comment section. You know, if you want to post insensitive comments, do it on your channel, but don't use Sister E's channel to post things that can possibly get her channel strikes. You know, because we know, as she pointed out, unlike TikTok, even though I've been flagged all over TikTok, so that's why I'm not even doing anything else on there. But anyway, you know, but let's be sensitive. Let's be considerate. If you feel like you don't, you're not moved one way or the other, what was taking place over there, that's so be it. But let's not try to press that notion that we all should be insensitive to what's going on over there, because again, a lot of times when we see things happening overseas, it's a dress rehearsal for things to come for our community. Think about what happened to our community. And our last point, Sister E, when I was in Philadelphia, it was sad. It was sad. It was like literally watching the situation over in Gaza. Here it is. You see how we were with gentrification. These guys got us from this prime real estate to a certain area of Philly, going downtown Philly and all the areas I used to roll at, nothing but Caucasians, Italians. You see even Asians. Their communities are thriving. They literally, just like what you see what's happening in Gaza, they reduced our people to a certain area that they completely control, and it's sad. I mean, the homeless, you know, you don't see a lot of homeless until you get over to our section. You don't see messed up buildings, abandoned buildings until you get to our section. You don't see, you know, these stands and all. It's terrible. And that is not just in Philly. That's in Newark, New Jersey. That's in happening in Atlanta. That's happening in Chicago. That's happening in pretty much every place that we occupy. Is that we are like the what we see happening or taking place over in Gaza. So whatever you see happening over there, don't be surprised they bring it over here to perfect, you know, using it to perfect their agenda. So I turn it back to you, sis.
Okay. You're right, though. You're right. You got to have that human element. The humanity will not allow you just to close your eyes and say, well, that's not us, that's them. You see a baby, you just saw a baby on a hospital bed, lifeless, and you know they're lifeless. And they took his, I guess, bonnet or whatever off his head, and half his skull was, the top of his skull was gone. That's still a baby, and that's an innocent. And that right there is what that brings tears to my eyes. So
Israeli tanks today temporarily since 2019. South of the city, Israeli tanks today temporarily blocked Salah al-Din.
So pay attention. South, they told him to run south. They told him, y'all leave the north and run south. Y'all heard what they just said, right? Israel told Gaza people, run south. They blocking where they can't even get over there to their region. Like that's so watch this.
Gaza's main north-south highway. A local journalist recorded this video as a tank appeared to open fire on a civilian car, killing 3 people. Palestinian residents say the route was blocked for over an hour, complicating Gazans' already fraught efforts to move south. NewsHour producer Shams Odeh was there.
The Israeli asked all the people a few days ago to leave Gaza to the south. Now the Israeli army cut the way at all between the north and the south. Any car crossing now to Gaza, they are.
So they're blocking the entrance where can't nobody get out. You brought up a great point, and I want to stop. I'm gonna put a little tick right here for a second. What's going on now is only what they're going to attempt to do to us. What are they doing? Gentrification is just a nice way of saying occupation. They're occupying the areas that they want, and they're taking us and putting us in a small area so they can do whatever they want to do to us. And if they wanted to do it, so that we won't be intertwined. Because the thing is, because we're so intertwined with all the communities, because, you know, we buying houses in their neighborhoods, and not their neighborhoods, but they're buying the houses in our neighborhoods. That's the best way to put it. And building up infrastructure, and we're building up our infrastructure. So we're so embedded that guess what? Let's do gentrification. Let's wait until people sell grandmama's house because they want to move out to the suburbs. And in some cases, some of those houses in the suburbs that most people run to is made out of silly putty. Because I remember when I looked at a house once in one of those neighborhoods, and the wall was so thin that if you would have kicked the hole in it, slightly. A toddler would have kicked it. It would have put a hole in the wall. They make it so pretty, but it's cheaply put together. But what's going on? Black people run into those neighborhoods and they're buying out the well-built neighborhoods and they're raising the prices up so they can keep us out. So they're pretty much.
And to your point, oh, I'm sorry, sis. I thought you was finished.
And
My
that's part of
apologies.
occupation. And somebody mentioned, said, well, what about our babies? I care about our babies. I care about our babies. I don't want nothing to happen to our babies. But you can't tell me that it does not jerk your heart to see a dead baby laying on a hospital bed, blown head, half blown up. You can't tell me that don't jerk your heart. If it don't jerk your heart, I'm scared of your heart, because that's still a baby and that's still an innocent. And the Most High gonna hold people accountable. And Israel better be careful. You better be careful, because these are babies. A dead baby on a hospital bed, and you're asking me like I don't care about our babies. I had a baby. She grown now. I care about our babies, but you can't tell me sitting there watching a baby dead, skull blown out, that it does not do anything to you. It doesn't. You can't get me to believe that it doesn't make you say, "Oh my gosh." If it don't jerk your heart, I'm concerned.
And to your point, Sister Eve, Christ was all about his people. He made it clear in Matthew chapter 15, he did not come for anyone else, but to bring salvation to his people. But yet, a Roman soldier had an issue with his daughter. And all he said to the Messiah is, say the word. And he believed. So again, yes, we're not taking sides one way or the other.
Right.
We're just dealing with the issue. And that's why I want to reiterate, just because we're talking about the deaths of children, the very thing that we see publicized over and over again,
Yep.
does not mean that we're taking one side or for the other. But we have to be real about this well-oiled machine that has been causing havoc right across the waters, right across the aisles, to the point that they are getting to a place that they are really becoming almost, not being able to be controlled.
Yeah. Yeah. I think somebody's saying that it was staged. I hope they're not saying this war is staged. I really hope they don't say this is what's going on right now, because I gotta get my community to understand everything is not staged.
Now, I will say this, Steve, for me, the only thing for me that raises questions for me, especially being prior military and being in certain spaces, my question is, being that Israel or the Israelis have one of the top intel, work hand in hand with the United States.
Oh yeah.
How is it that it took them 4 or 5 hours for them to even know what's going on?
Correct. Now I agree.
If they know, you know what I mean? If they know what's going on all through Hamas, they literally control, not Hamas, but Gaza, as well as the West Bank. They know the ins and outs. They control. Gaza is an air prison, so they know the ins and outs of that. But I'm not saying that they started this, but I just find it hard to believe that they were clueless for 4 or 5 hours, and you got people using paraglides, coming in, and you mean to tell me that's not suspicious?
That's not suspicious, but I think where they're at right now with what's going on is not like people in the back writing the script saying, let's blow up these buildings, let's kill all these people. I think what's going on is years of colonization and occupation has now come back and bite a bit every single one of them, because colonization and occupation and apartheid and all those different things and slave trade has now created a mindset of arrogance to say we're fine, we're okay, we can do this, we can get away with this, because they've gotten away with it for so long. So I think right now what we're dealing with is they have done so much that now they're doing it to each other, and they have no compassion to say, I don't have to stop. So I think now they're just at the point where they're fighting each other. You know how Most High sometimes will make people he calls them to war amongst each other. This is literally what they're doing. I really believe that the Most High is causing them to fight amongst each other.
And makes you think about a number of situations, like, for example, Jehoshaphat. You know how they were being attacked by multiple nations, and in the end they ended up killing each other. So, and Israel was able to go and benefit off the spoils. So but again, family, and one of the things that Sister E is pointing out here with the videos she's showing is the deceptive propaganda machine that we see. And one of the things that stands out for me as well is the label: media, barbarians, savages, right? Those are some of the things that you hear them talk about. Guess what? Guess how they refer to us to justify their actions. They called us barbarians. They refer to us as savages. Family is so deep here. This is why even words, and Sister, you heard me say this over and over again, words have meaning.
Yeah.
I encourage you guys, go look up the word pagan, do the etymological studies of the word pagan. And when you study that word, for the most part, where you see pagans used, it's referring to what they deem to be civilized Caucasian communities, like the Romans, the Greeks. And when you see heathen, it's referred to what they consider to be barbaric African nations that don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff is right in our face. Some of these translations reflect this.
Yep.
So again, we have to pay attention to what's going on. Again, we we take the side of the Most High side. We're going to side with his people no matter what. But where I'm getting at is, if Christ told his disciples to be what? Wise as a what? Serpent. Cunning as a dove, wise as a serpent. That means you have to be up to speed with what's going on and not just be oblivious, because if we're not careful, guess what? It's coming to our doorsteps.
Oh, it's definitely. That's just I really agree that that's just one phase of what they're doing because not only are they doing it in Palestine, I was going to cover what's going on in the Congo right now. They're doing the exact same thing. Now, they're not putting on the press of what's going on in the Congo. They're doing worse in the Congo, because again, they have the mindset of it's fine to do us like that because we're not considered to be human. But I think what's going on now is it's going to end up flipping on them. All this stuff that they're doing is flipping on them. It's going to end up flipping on their heads, and it's going to end up exposing their hand even more. Because again, the media is very controlled, but certain aspects of social media, great example is TikTok, is not as controlled, because you have access to certain things and you see certain things that the US and these other countries can't stop. They're actually showing you the videos of these dead children. They're actually showing you videos of what's going on. Also, they have videos of what's going on in the Congo as well. So that's all they're doing, is these nations are trying to occupy and make the last move on these different countries and areas they want control of. Israel wants control of Palestine. The world literally wants control of Africa. Right now, it's a lot. It's some things going on in Africa where I was like, wow, this is for real. Like, what's going on in the Congo? They said M23 is killing folks left and right. I think it's more people that are dying right now in the Congo than it is in Palestine, but it still doesn't take away innocence. These are children. These are children that are being killed.
And to your point, go ahead, Ceci.
and you're watching it before your eyes, and you're sitting there saying, the Most High. Now, I really believe that this is the hand of the Most High. The Most High is doing this. I definitely know that God is doing this. Yah is doing this. But in the midst of them doing this, He's laying judgment, not us. But the Most High says, we still got to have compassion and love in our hearts. Still got to have compassion in our hearts. And because if you get to a place where you don't have no compassion and your heart starts hardening, you're no better than the oppressor. And I refuse to be in any level of capacity the mind of the oppressor. And what they did to us is enough for me to say, time out, this ain't how I'm going, and this is not how I'm thinking. But that's just my thoughts.
And even to your point of, what's happening in Africa, think about it. Think about apartheid. Think about that system. Think about the major players in that, right? Think about it. I mean, there are UN, I have notes, and I'm working on something that I'm going to do based upon one of the UN assemblies when they had to come together and discuss Zionism. Man, do you know that they know what Zionism is? They know what Zionism is. They know Zionism had a major influence on apartheid down in South Africa.
Now,
It's even brought up at that UN resolution.
Now, one thing somebody says, but our eyes are on another nation, not our people in Africa. Where's the compassion for us? Look up M23 and then tell me what your thoughts are and who they're being backed by. And they're ultimately killing the Congolese people. I think it's millions of people that are dead.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it like that, and people are going to be mad, but I was shocked when I saw the face of M23. I said, are you serious? Are you serious? But keep in mind, we know these other nations are backing them. But when you look at them, I'm like, oh my goodness. But what's so sad is they use our own people to come after us. And our own people will take the money and run with it.
Yeah. And see, that's part of the problem with the finances over, a lot of the African countries is because leaders, these coups, they did, many of them take over and, do wrong with the monies, corrupt. And before you know it, the people suffer, the highways and, the infrastructures that should be in place are not in place because of this thing of corruption that's in many of these African countries. I'm not saying all, but many of them are corrupt. This is why, look at what's going on in Ghana. Look, and we're talking leadership. Ghana is a very rich area, but look how run down it is because you still have economic slavery, right? These coups get into place, get these monies, don't do right by these loans, don't invest the monies like they claim that they were going to do, and before you know it, they signing over, using as collateral, let's just say natural resources to different countries, and these countries know that they cannot afford to pay it back, and then that gives them what? Influence. That's how China got influence over, I believe, this Uganda's airport, as well as their only power company, is because of what? Taking loans that they know they cannot pay back, not applying the resources to invest from within, and before you know it, they are in economic slavery to these world powers, to the World Bank.
So it's interesting to see all the things that are going on right now because and you may not, I don't know if you agree or not, because I don't think me and you've ever had that conversation. I think we are about to leave. I think it's getting to the point. It's almost a war because you got every single nation fighting amongst each other. There's something going on. I've never seen this many wars all at one time just popping up, because we still got Ukraine and Russia. You still got what's going on Israel, Palestine. We must not forget what's going on with Niger and France, because France is still pissed off that Niger told them they got to go. And you still have some of these colonized African nations, some of them that are pushing back to say, no, we're not accepting your money anymore. We're going to do our own thing, where you have others that are still, getting paid on the side. But you got both sides. You see all this stuff going on. And then you got the U.S. smack dab in the middle. You got Russia smack dab in the middle. You got everybody beginning to choose sides. And it's only getting worse. Well, right now, they're all getting ready to come at Israel and be like, you know what, Israel, you're committing war crimes. And Israel is ultimately saying, I don't care what you think. I'm still going to do what I want to do. And the U.S. is still putting blinders on and saying, well, no, we're going to still give them money, but y'all got to stop the war. You got to stop what you're doing. But we still going to give you money for the war. And it's like they talk out of both sides of their neck. And you're sitting here saying, it's about to go down. Oh, it's definitely about to go down. It's real interesting.
Yeah. And see, Christ warned, he said in Matthew 24 about wars and rumors of wars. So we see a lot of that taking place right now. And I'm telling you, there's a hustle going on. I mean, come on now, if they're identifying Ukraine as being Jews, like the leader is being a Ukrainian Jew, and we see the Israelis, United States has already given Ukraine almost $250 billion.
Yes.
Now they're talking about approving. It's going through Congress right now, like $50 to $100 billion to the Israelis.
And then in that bill, they threw in a little money for Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then Israelis, putting money to the same people has always been part of the budget. So think about it. Before you know it, they're allocating $500 billion to $1 trillion to that community. But yet, when it comes to our people, where's our reparations?
Oh no, they don't want
They come up with every excuse, but they find a way to make sure that the very people, think about it. They're giving billions of dollars to all these groups, but not our people. Not our people. So, that lie cannot last forever, which we know it's not going to last forever. So to your point, eventually the dam is going to break.
Oh yeah.
Eventually people are going to say enough is enough.
Yep.
I've had some private, internal discussions on this, and I've said the same thing. There's going to be something that's going to happen. There's going to be a declaration that's going to be made of something that everyone knows, but are scared to actually put out there. And I'm just waiting for it. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll tell you offline, but I believe when that declaration is made, when people say enough is enough and make the true declaration, suddenly we're going to see things going to be turned upside down.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, but yes, sister, even just going back to what you have on the screen, one of the things that I have an audio of, and I caught it real quick before it got taken down of, just some reporting showing how some of the hostages, so to speak, some of the people that have been Israelis that have been killed are actually covered under what is called friendly fire. In other words, them killing their own.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, even though we see it on the surface, they don't negotiate. Collateral damage, right? So all I'm saying is, to your point, as you saw in the clip that you shared, a tank blowing up, innocent people. You know, they still couldn't even fully explain the hospital thing. I was sitting up there like, that makes absolutely no sense. So right now, Israelis are behaving as if, hey, you know what? I got my big brother to back me up,
Oh
which is
yes,
the United States.
and U.S. and United States. And what had happened is this: if, let's say, by chance that they decide the UN just says, you know what, we're gonna have to bring Israel in for war crimes. Guess who? And guess who else gonna get pulled in for war crimes? The U.S. with them, because that money trail is going to trace back to them. And also, they are already calling out Britain and saying Britain needs to be brought in for war crimes too, as well, for financially backing the war too, their war, Israel's war. So they're already pointing fingers to say, Israel, war crimes, Britain, war crimes. The next one, I really believe the U.S. is going to be brought in for war crimes. Now, I think when they bring the U.S. onto mainstream, a lot of things are going to come out that, you know, not just backing what happened with the Palestinian. Y'all did the worst atrocity in the world, and y'all were involved in it, and y'all were heavily involved in it. And that is the transatlantic slave trade. I see it popping
All
up
right,
somewhere.
let's correct it. World War.
World War.
And when we say slave ships, those are actually warships. If we start putting the proper terms on these, those, you know, when we think of, we've been programmed to say slave ships, so we think of cargo. No, those were warships.
Yep. And
they were armed for war too.
Yep. And the thing is, they're going to these countries, it's going to get to the point that I really believe they're going to start pointing fingers at each other, because it's going to start getting bad, and it's going to start getting worse and worse. And they're going to start pointing fingers. And guess what? They're going to point, and it's going to get pointed straight to, and I really believe this, going to be pointed straight to the U.S. All of them are going to be like, well, it wasn't all us. It's the U.S.
But see, here's the kicker.
Yep.
How do you hold them accountable when they're the big fish in the...
You got proof of war crimes. Us.
You see what I'm saying? I think, no. What I'm getting at is, this is the dilemma of many of these, of the UN. For example, with Russia. How is the UN going to hold them accountable?
Yep.
You know what I mean? You know,
and I think when I say accountability, I really, and you may not agree with me, I really believe reparation is going to be a talking point soon. I really believe it's going to end up eventually becoming a talking point.
I believe it is, but for me, it seems that whenever that is a talking or a discussion, it's a carrot for our people to dangle in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Remember California, right? They was dangling that carrot before what? Election season, the last election cycle. You know, what they were talking, $500,000 to $1 million for each. And where did that go? Where's the discussion now? So I believe, yes, reparations is definitely should be a discussion, but I believe that there's going to be a bigger declaration that's going to cause all chaos. You know, it's going to undermine. It's one trump card that I'm waiting to see be played. Once that's played, that's what's going to be the true monkey wrench in everything, so to speak.
Hold on. Somebody said, do we have time for more reparation talks? Yes. I'm not stepping down. I'm not. If the Most High tells me, no, you're not going to get reparations, I'm going to be like, okay. But as far as me and the human side of me, I'm still going to stand firm and say, y'all got to pay us, because that's where they want us to get to say, I'm not saying you, I just saw somebody in the chat. They want us to
no. I know. But to your point, Sister E, what are we talking about? When the Most High is going to restore Israel, guess what? There's reparations.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, downplay reparations. When Israel came out of Egypt, they were instructed to go to Pharaoh and demand reparations.
Correct.
So, no, we're not going to downplay, because that's something that is owed, that is biblical. the restoration of Israel, guess what? That's biblical. It said that all the nations, you know what I mean? They're not just going to give lip service. They're going to be part of what? Restoring Israel.
Correct.
And that is
Correct.
what? Reparations.
I agree.
When Isaiah talks about them carrying our children on their shoulders, that's reparations.
Yep. Yep.
So let's not, I understand the thought behind it, but there's always an account. There's always an accountability for anything, that one side did to another.
Correct.
The whole purpose of reparations is to make sure that victim is no longer dependent on the perpetrator.
Correct.
Every country that have been conquered was given reparations and also help rebuild their nation. China is a perfect example. I mean, not China, but Japan. Look at what happened to Japan when they dropped that bomb on them. What happened? They gave them free medals to rebuild the entire nation.
Yeah.
So, family, reparations, that is ours. That's what's owed to us. You got countries that, and I'll just say the other people, the ish people, they get monies and haven't gone through what we've gone through, haven't gone through any of the things that we've gone through, and they're getting reparations.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's why I was saying that, because I noticed some people in the community, they'll say, well, they ain't gonna give it to us anyway. I was like, that ain't even biblical. That doesn't even, they're gonna give us that great substance. That great substance is gonna happen. So when I hear people say, oh, they're not gonna give it, oh, they're gonna give it. And it's gonna be to a point they are not gonna even have a choice. But also it's gonna be what they're gonna want to give it. They're gonna want to give it. The Most High is gonna put them in a position to want to give. So I don't think that it's gonna be a situation where we ain't getting nothing. People we got to be careful and not turn into the rapture church. Well, when we be with him, we got nothing to worry about. No, while we with him, he gonna say, they said that we gonna get our just due and our return. So what is it? The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the saints. Come on now. So
but yes, Sister, I'm gonna have to give her call it a wrap here.
yep, I'm going to be at 2. I am out of it, but yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation. So anything else before we close up? Because what time is it? Oh, it's 10:30. I gotta get up in the morning.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, being sensitive doesn't mean that you're compromising. Being sensitive to situations or circumstances, to children and things along that line, does not equate to compromise. It's just that, hey, like you said, it's showing that you do care. You do have a heart. You are human. You are a child of the Most High. He did not create us to be robots.
I'm sorry.
That's right. Your dog was right on cue. There you go. I heard that Sister E dog was right on cue. Back me up. But yeah, family, we just have to change our perspective. Even what I was pointing out with the slave war, it was a slave war. It wasn't a slave trade. When we start looking at those so-called slave ships, they were war ships. The transatlantic slave trade was actually a world war. Look up the very definition of a world war. So we have to even reprogram ourselves of expecting World War III to happen, because World War III already happened, especially when we look at our history. See, we've been programmed to ignore our history and pay attention to others' history. When we look at the scriptures, the Bible, that is the history of Israel, the rise, fall, and the redemption of Israel, and the plan that the Most High has in place to restore all of his people through who? Israel. So we have to make sure when we look at things and put things in this proper perspective, again, transatlantic world war, It was a world war. Instead of slave ships, those were warships. We are victims. We are sons and daughters of prisoners of war. All right. But with that being said, Sissy, I just kind of stalled a little bit since your dog was in agreement with what I said, and gave a little bark, a little yelp there.
That's
So
the watchdog. He hears everything. And he gonna let you know something at the door. He gonna stick his nose under the door. The little the bottom of the door, and you got the little open. He gonna stick his nose under there and bark so you can hear him in the hallway. Yeah, he interesting. He real interesting. Now he's done. So but yeah, this was a great conversation. We just got to realize that what's going on right now is the Most High's will, and we can't take anything from it. But with that, we still have to be watchful as we pray and pay attention to what's going on, because it's a lot going on right now. I'm actually, I'm a news geek. I love to watch the news. I love to watch anything dealing with current affairs. I've always enjoyed that. And I'll spend hours at work just watching, and it'll be on YouTube. And then I watch a little bit of the news. And what you have to do is connect the dots. What you see, like in some of these social media outlets, and then watch the news. You got to kind of, connect the dots to kind of say, that's not true. That doesn't make sense. So, because social media isn't as bad as people make it seem to be. Some outlets are pretty good. So I am getting ready to go to bed because it's obvious that I am getting sleepy. And I guess we're done.
Well, appreciate everyone for listening, and have a blessed remainder of the week. Stay watchful at all times. Stay watchful at all times.
Yes. All right, family. Y'all have a good one. Grace and peace.